What's up, guys? Welcome back to Making Moves, the podcast for growth-minded chiropractors looking to grow personally and professionally through value-based conversations from chiropractors and business owners that are in the trenches, walking the walk, taking time away from their schedule to help uplift this community and this profession. Follow us on Instagram to stay up to date on the episode releases, upcoming interviews, and other practice growth resources. And if you find any value bombs from today's episode, you can take a screenshot of that and share it out as well. We really believe that the empowered chiropractors movement is here. So share this out. We'd love to continue growing this community and providing these resources to uplift, like I said, the community and the profession at large. I also want to mention that this podcast is brought to you by ChiroLux, the best portable table in the game. I use these tables for training, practice on the go, and as exam tables in our office. ChiroLux is supporting the future of our profession by giving away tables and other adjusting tools at every one of our Making Moves seminars. So if you're in the market for a portable table, use code Travis Stewart at checkout to score a sweet discount. I don't take any of the proceeds. They go straight into the giveaways for the chiropractic students in need, which is why we appreciate their support so much. A huge thanks to ChiroLux. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce today's guest. He's been in practice for over 25 years, serving Oklahoma City at Young Chiropractic. He's the founder and synthesizer of Focus OKC, the CEO and leader of Focus Foundation's coaching group. He's a husband, a father, a student, a teacher, and a walking legend in this profession. Dr. Tim Young, welcome to the podcast.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you for that introduction.
Yes, sir.
A couple things have changed since then. 28 years in practice, and now I'm a grandfather. So
let's go. Okay, add that in there. For 28 years in practice, what an accomplishment.
Yeah, it's been an interesting ride, and it's literally, there are times when I'm in my office adjusting. My diploma is right there next to my adjusting table, and I'll look up at it and I'll see the date. 1993, and I just shake my head, man. How did that happen? It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, not to date you, but I was born in 1991.
Yeah, I knew somebody was going to think that.
But that's amazing, like the fact that you've been serving chiropractic for almost as long as I've been walking this earth.
Yeah, you know what? It goes by in a hurry. So everybody listen to this, we'll talk a lot about this, but enjoy every moment because you're going to blink. And the next thing you know, this first year practices that you guys are in the middle of were 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. So it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Dr. Tim, I know that you had a great story that got you to where you are. You had a great story in your younger years of chiropractic practice. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about that. You can talk about your schooling and the education that you received. I'm sure it looked a lot different than it does now. And then how that transitioned into being a young practitioner.
Yeah, I'll make a very, very long story short just for time's sake. But just like the rest of you, I was inspired to become a chiropractor when I was still in the Navy. I was touched by God. This is what you're going to do. And I went to Cleveland Chiropractic School in Kansas City, graduated in 93. And going through school, it's a lot like school is today. You have, unfortunately, what we deal with is,
yep.
So when I was in school, it's a lot like everybody else was in school. A lot of the professors that we have were people that didn't make it in practice, and so they needed a job. So the schools hired them. They need people to teach, and God bless them, we need them. But unfortunately, they're bringing their failed perspective into the school, and a lot of times that's what they give to the students. And you come out of school with their ideology, and it's not reality, really. Fortunately for me, I had a great chiropractor, a great legend, a great man, Dr. Hugo Gibson, who is still my teacher, my mentor, my friend today. Today's his birthday. I got to call him. He spoke chiropractic into my heart. And so I knew what I knew was the philosophy of chiropractic. I understood that if you moved a bone, took the pressure off the nerve, then the innate would heal. That's really all I knew getting out of school. But one of the most powerful messages and lessons that we could have if we own it. So I get out of school, and I get a job offer in Oklahoma City, where I am today, in 1995, to go down and work with a couple of doctors that had opened a practice as an associate. So for all of you that are just getting started or have had a real tough time getting your practice going or going through some tough times as an associate, I'm going to share something with you that I went through. Just got married, had a brand new baby, two new stepdaughters that I adopted, moved the entire family 4 hours into another state, working in this practice. We know nobody. We have no money. I mean, when I say no money, we don't have a checking account. We don't have a savings account. What little bit of, I think I had $5 or $10 in my pocket when I went to the office. And what we had was an agreement. It was $500 a week, which our rent was almost more than I was making, and to feed 3 kids, and or a percentage of insurance when the insurance come in, and I was 60-40. But for some reason, the insurance just wasn't coming in. We're filing it, but we're not seeing it. We're filing, we're not seeing it. Well, I come to the office one day, and I go to put my key in the door, and the locks have been changed. Mm-hmm. They had closed the practice and moved north to Guthrie, Oklahoma, shut it down without telling me, without any warning. I had nothing. I had no practice. I had no money. I had no job. I had nothing. Here's what I had. I had a wife, a new baby, and 2 new daughters that were depending on me to do something. So at that moment, there was a lot of decisions that had to be made, and it was a really, really dark and tough time. I have a huge story from that moment to where I'm sitting in my office in my home today is unbelievable. But what I can tell you is the number one principle that got me from that moment of despair and like, what do I do now, to sitting in this house that I'm in my life, the number one principle was the chiropractic principle that I never abandoned, ever abandoned. And so that was the one thing that I got in school. That's why after all these years, I still lecture worldwide, delivering this message of our principle. And that's why I'm on this podcast today.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you sharing that story. And actually, a few points that came from that is one of the first adjustments that blew my mind that I ever watched was you adjusting Hugo Gibson at Focus OKC in maybe 2018, something like that. Whenever he was there, he may be there every year. I'm not sure, but
he's never missed a year.
Okay. Well, I was there early on and in my chiropractic education, and I saw you adjust his atlas, and you adjusted his atlas just like you would adjust someone, my age, my youth, and the way that you moved his spine and then helped him up off that table. And then I believe you went back in, and I think you either spoke or he spoke. It may have been him. And I actually have a video of that I used to watch over and over and over again, just because of your presence, your intention, your speed, and your precision in that adjustment. And it was something that inspired me early on in chiropractic. So thank you for that.
No, that's humbling. Thank you. And you gotta, and you have to put that in perspective. I was asked to adjust my teacher, mm-hmm. right? The student is now carrying, what he did for me, the way he adjusted. Because Hugo Gibson, you talk about speed. We don't know you can't understand what speed is until you saw him in his prime. I mean, his nickname was Thunder Thumbs. I mean, when you got adjusted, you felt like you'd been hit by lightning. It was an experience. And so for him to ask me to adjust him, man, you talk about an honor. It was something that you better be present in that moment. And I was.
Yeah. That's great. And then next point is, talking about the professors, and I don't think things have changed much. I think most of the professors in chiropractic school, like you said, I'm not as, I guess, like assertive in my verbiage sometimes because I'm still early on, and maybe I just don't feel like I have the right to say that they failed in practice, but it does seem that way, like they come into the school and they're expressing their own ideology, and they're hoping that like permeates and perpetuates. But in actuality, it's docs like you that are out in practice and that have been in practice for years, doing it successfully, seeing the client success stories, seeing how people can heal through and from chiropractic, that should be teaching the youth of our profession. So that's why this podcast exists. And I'm sure that's why Focus OKC exists and Focus Foundations exist. So how can we continue to bring more of that into the profession?
Well, you got to own it first, right? That's what I was, one of the things that I say all the time is that when we're in school, and I remember being in school, my uncle was a chiropractor for 33 years. I went to him my whole life. And so my perspective of chiropractic was I would go to Uncle Bill, get adjusted, and leave. And that's all I knew. But when I was called to be a chiropractor, it wasn't for success. It wasn't for money. I didn't know what that was. It wasn't any of that. It was just a calling, right? Excuse me. So what happens is we come out of school and we have no idea what chiropractic actually is. We really don't know what it is. And what happens is it is revealed to us within practice as we're taking care of patients, as we're actually witnessing it. It's witnessing it. You can go to church and you can read the Bible, but until you experience the work of God, you don't really understand. And chiropractic is the same way. You can study the books and you can listen to the teachers, but until you take an infant in a hospital, an ICU, not giving much of a chance to live, and you adjust that atlas and you look up and you witness the machines, the heart rate come down, or the respiration change, and the baby go home the next day. Until you witness that under your hands, you will never understand the true power of what it is to be a chiropractor. The way we're going to perpetuate this is the men and women like me that's out here in the profession, and like you that are actually doing this. We've got to step up. We've got to speak the truth. We've got to tell our stories. The problem is, this is why. So Hugo, the perfect example, Hugo Gibson was fired from Cleveland Chiropractic by Ashlee Cleveland because he was telling chiropractic stories in class. He was talking about what we're talking about. He was saying, when I was in practice, these are the things that happened. And she fired him because they were anecdotal stories and they had no place in chiropractic. They will not allow chiropractors, none of the schools, I'll take that back. There's only 3 schools that will. Life West, and Sherman will allow field doctors to come in and speak to the students. The rest of them won't allow it because they don't want their students to hear what's really going on. They want them to understand their version of it. And the way we're going to perpetuate this profession is, first of all, you got to understand it. You got to know it. You got to know exactly who you are, what you do, and why you do it. And that's why I'm here. And that's why I do everything I do. But then you got to stand up and speak, right? What is the saying? That it's not the men that do evil, it's the men that watch evil and do nothing about it, right? And so as chiropractors, this is what's changed over the last 150 years. The chiropractors in the beginning were so in love with chiropractic that they wanted to teach others about chiropractic. That's why BJ did it. That's why Gonstead did it. That's why all of these great chiropractors did what they did, is because they understood how powerful the principle was, and so they perpetuated it. Well, now it's so watered down, and so the chiropractors that truly get it, they just keep it to themselves, and that's not going to serve us at all. We're going to have to understand it, spend time with it, and then step out and deliver it.
Yeah. So who needs to hear this the most? Who needs to receive this message the most? Is it starting with the youth of our profession and the students of our profession? Okay.
It is, and I can't even tell you, over the last 15 years, how many student adjusting courses I've done and how many lectures I've done and how many times. Matter of fact, next Friday, I'm going to be at Parker, or not at Parker, I'm going to be in Dallas because they won't let me on campus, outside talking to about 60 to 70 the chiropractic students that's in one of their fraternities.
DSC? Yeah.
I'll be down there spending a whole day with them. I mean, I do everything I can to get to. It's just like you, perfect. You're sitting at Focus, right? And you see a chiropractic adjustment. You see what it looks like. You feel it. You witness it. You understand it. And then now you do a podcast today.
Yeah.
Tell me the power of adjustment can't change the world. You're changing it because you witness what it looks like. Yes, we got to get to the youth, but here's the thing. I'm on the phone every day with doctors all over the world that's been in practice for over 30 years, and they're calling me saying, I lost it. I've lost my fire. I've lost my drive, because that's one of the things that you all are going to have to deal with is over a period of time, you start taking it for granted. You start getting complacent. And so every chiropractor needs this spoken into them. Excuse me. Every chiropractor needs this spoken into them, whether they know it or not.
Yeah. Yeah. So 2 things there. Firstly, how do we change the perspective of the students that have this resistance to paying $400 to going to a student seminar where they're actually going to have life spoke into them? They're going to have chiropractic to revealed to them, but they're willing to pay $300,000 for an education that's not serving them. How do we change that?
That's probably one of the best questions that you could possibly ask me. And I wished I had a very definitive answer. You're right. I'll give you, this podcast, what you're doing is one of the ways. I'm going to give you an example of that. My daughter, Alasha, she went to Parker and $260,000 of student loans.
Mm-hmm.
She has went through more seminars outside of chiropractic school while she was in chiropractic school than any chiropractor I personally know in her whole career. She's been to over 50 different seminars learning, and I'm her dad. She's grown up in chiropractic. It's all she's ever known. She's been to 50 to 60 different seminars, studying classes to learn everything she can about true chiropractic. 2 years in practice, 2 years in her own office. Second year, the largest pediatric practice in the world, collected over $1 million. So how important is it? You know, she spent thousands and thousands of dollars on top of her $260,000 student loan to create who she is. Students have got to understand, chiropractic school, there's only one purpose a chiropractic school has: to give you a piece of paper that says you're a chiropractor. Yep. That's it. Pass boards, now you're a chiropractor. It will not, that school, I don't give a damn what school you go to, it will not teach you how to be a chiropractor at all. So and I can't tell you how many times I've had students or doctors right out of school attend one day with me, one day, and they said, I learned more today than I did my entire 4 years of chiropractic school, right? So it's perspective. It is absolute perspective. We're going to talk a lot about perspective as we go on, but we got to change it. We got to change that paradigm, because people, what's happening is the schools are telling the students, this is all you need to know. But I asked Carl Cleveland at Cleveland Chiropractic School this one time. He was wanting me to send all of my patients as students into the Cleveland. And I said, Carl, let me ask you a question. When we run a practice, this is how I run my practice. You know, I built my practice before internet, Facebook, social media. I did it the old-fashioned way. I actually went to work and I introduced myself to everybody. But I said, when a patient comes to me and through chiropractic they're successful, whatever it is they come to me for, they become successful. They will go tell everybody they know, and those people come to my practice and I grow a business. That's how it works. In chiropractic school, if people come to this school and they leave and they're not successful because you don't care, once they leave, it doesn't matter what happens to them. You don't track it. You don't follow up on it. It doesn't matter. They're not your problem anymore. They fail in practice. Do you think they're going to send anybody back to this school? No. You need to start creating successful chiropractors. Here's what his answer was to me. Well, you went to the school and you're successful. And I looked him dead in the face and I said, and it wasn't because of this school. It was because everything I learned outside of this school. The only thing this school provided me was Dr. Hugo Gibson, and you fired him. You took away the one thing that we needed, and then I had to go out of school and go learn from the masters in the profession what it actually looked like. That's why I'm successful.
Yep.
You didn't like that answer. And I've said that to a lot of different schools. They don't like that answer because they're running. Here's the thing, gang. Listen to me. Chiropractic schools are a business. That's it. They're a business. That's all they give a shit about. They don't care about your success. They don't care about the profession. They don't care about any of that stuff. Worldwide, they care about making money. It's just a business. And when the quicker you all understand and learn that and go, okay, well, I'm going to be a chiropractor, so I need to figure it out. Then you go outside of the school, and there's all sorts of information, all sorts of avenues that we could provide that you're going to get a bird's eye view of what it looks like.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, we're talking about even in Alasha's case, right? $260,000 to become a doctor of chiropractic, right? That's her degree that hangs on her wall. And then maybe $10,000 allotted to becoming a chiropractor and actually learning and kind of digesting and being able to apply everything that it means to be a chiropractor. So if you're a student out there,
and within 2 or 3 years of practice, that girl can write a check and pay it all off.
That's right. Yeah. So the return on the investment there is massive and unquantifiable. So if you're a student and this is your barrier, this is your limitation that you're not willing to invest in yourself in these outside seminars, in these outside conventions, in outside coaching, I encourage you to reconsider. I encourage you to take a bird's eye view and honestly assess like what you want your success path to look like. Because if you want it to look like anything like the people that you're hearing from that are on these stages that are speaking the truth of chiropractic, you're going to have to invest in chiropractic, not in becoming a doctor of chiropractic. Those are two different things. Thank you for that.
And it never changes. I want to add something. for the rest of your career. If you want to,
Yeah.
if you want to continue to be successful, listen. I was last year. I was in Amsterdam. I had doctors fly in from all over the world, spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to spend the day with me. They've been in practice for years. I mean, they came from all over Europe. They came from Spain. They came from America. They come from everywhere to spend a day. And I was in, and we were at Kerry Sigafus, and I don't know, a lot of you young doctors, Google James Sigafus. He was an icon in profession. His son is in Amsterdam, who's in my coaching group now. So he's learning from me, which is kind of surreal. Like one of my heroes, I'm teaching his son. It's weird.
Yep.
But with that being said, chiropractors from all over the world will spend thousands and thousands of dollars just to spend the day with me to get the chiropractic message. Don't think it ever stops, because it doesn't. 28 years in practice, I've got my green books are right above me. I will read them every day. Every day. Don't think it ever stops, gang. Don't ever think because as soon as you stop learning, you might as well just shut your practice and do something different.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So we can transition, just a question about you and maybe so that you can speak some life into some young chiropractors. When did you know that you were destined for greatness?
Wow. That's a tough question.
And so piggybacking, how did you detect that and how did you nurture that?
You know, I think what happens is I want to answer this honestly. I don't want a knee-jerk cliche answer.
Yeah.
I apologize. So when I got out of chiropractic school, my whole life I grew up poor, very poor, down in the hills of Missouri. Money was not there, and success was never spoke of. It was survival. Even going through chiropractic school, it was survival to pass the test. When I got out of school, I had no idea what I was going to do or what I was going to become. I just knew it was survival. My wife and I, we get married, and it's survival. We moved to Oklahoma, and we're surviving. I mean, that's all that ever really happened. And then I joined a coaching group after being 3 years an associate and just getting taken advantage of and really struggling. I mean, it was pretty rough. I got a lot of those hard time stories, but then I joined a coaching group and somebody that taught me, okay, this is how you do a consultation. This is how you do an exam. This is how you do a report of findings. And then I started surrounding myself with very successful chiropractors. I mean, these people are making, some of them $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year. They've got these $500,000 homes. They've got brand new cars. I'm like, wait, what? I mean, chiropractic provided this for them. And so I started learning from the successful chiropractors. When I was in chiropractic school, and I'll make this story short, but this is very important. When I was in chiropractic school, Dr. Gibson, who we talk about a lot, it was try 9, my very last trimester. Back then it was 9 or 12 try, and I was in 9 try. We was in philosophy class. He walked into the class and he said, I need all of you to follow me down. So we get up, and back then you did not, Dr. Gibson was scary. Big South African, he was a man's man. When he said something, you jumped. So we all followed him down, and we went down into the basement, the old chiropractic school, to the cadaver lab. And he pulls up one of the cadavers, and they come up out of the tank, and he pulls a sheet back, and he looks at the whole class, and he said, what's missing? Of course, we're all standing there. We're not going to, you know how it is. We're students. We're not going to say anything. We're like, I don't know, the liver. I mean, we don't know what and he just looked at us. And he took the sheet, and he laid it back over the cadaver, and he rolled it down. Never said a word. He just walked out of the room. We followed him. He go back to the class. We all sat down, and he just immediately takes off and starts lecturing. And we're looking at each other like, what the hell is wrong with this crazy old man? So I graduate. Never did I think about that moment again. It was just one of those weird things Dr. Gibson did. I figured it out. It was 10 years into my practice, and I was getting ready to make an adjustment. Now, you got to understand, I was $200 a week with this. We built our first home. By all rights, I'm very successful. I'm collecting $400,000 a year. I mean, things are good. I get ready to make an adjustment on a patient, and I take my hands off and I stand up, and that moment came back. That moment overtook me, and I stopped, and I remembered that moment, and then God spoke to me. What's missing? What was missing from that cadaver? The soul. The soul was missing. Life was missing. And I looked down at that patient, and it was revealed to me at that moment, all of you listen to me, At that moment, it was revealed why I am a chiropractor and what it is I do. I connect the soul to the tissue. I do not pop backs. I do not make noises. I do not get rid of pain. I am not musculoskeletal. I am the connection. I am the connector from the soul to the tissue. And when that was revealed to me, my practice went from 200 up over 900 patients a week with word of mouth only. No, I have spent zero money on marketing. And when you say, how did you know you were destined for greatness? It wasn't that I ever felt that I was destined for greatness, but I understood my role in the greatest, who I work for and why I was chosen. And when you understand and you stand in this certainty, I have what I call pathological certainty. My feet are in concrete up to my knees. You can't move me. When I make an adjustment, I know what's going on. I know what's going to happen. I know how it's going to happen. And I know who's in charge. That's the greatness. That is the greatness. And so when you do that, the universal properties, universal laws, when you serve for the sake of serving with that sort of intent, everything comes back to you. It's just like gravity. It's just like if I throw a ball against this wall, it's coming back. You serve with intention and integrity and everything I just talked about, the whole world opens up and is delivered back to you. That's how you know you're destined for greatness, because greatness is who you work for.
That is a great answer, Dr. Tim. Ed Milet says something that always kind of brings me back and keeps me grounded. And he talks about never weighing your worth or your success against your outcomes, but, keeping what he calls the trilogy and the power of one more, which is faith, intention, and third, tertiary, is execution. So it sounds very similar, like the way that you're rooted and grounded.
Ed is one of my heroes. I love Ed Milet, and I listen to him a lot. I was talking to a doctor yesterday, and he was really struggling. Young doctor. He went to New York Chiropractic School, very mechanistic, and he's like, Doc, I'm not getting the miracles in my office. I'm not getting them like you. I'm not seeing them. And I said the reason is because you were what you're doing is you're attaching an outcome to what you're doing. You cannot attach an outcome. Here's the thing. You think I'm supposed to make this adjustment, hear this noise, and the blind come back, and a cripple walk, and the deaf hear again. That's not how this works. It's not how it works at all. The miracle is what's going on that you can't see. It's the miracle, like God's miracles. There's miracles going on all the time that we don't see, but they're happening. They're happening, and you can't attach an outcome to it. You got to be present in the moment. When you're present in the moment and you are delivering that adjustment with the proper intention, the miracles are happening that you don't see. I had a little boy that was 4 years old that had a hemivertebra. That he was 4 years old. He couldn't control his bowels. He had to wear a diaper to school. His kidneys were the size of raisins. They were getting ready to do surgery on him and take one of them out, and they were going to hopefully that the other one would have to work hard enough to where they wouldn't have to remove it. I mean, this little man, stunted growth. It was awful what he was going through. I'll make a long story short. They told him, don't take him to a chiropractor. He'll paralyze him. L3 hemivertebra in the middle of a curve. I had to pray. I asked, what do I do with this child? And it was revealed. Adjust him. I started moving the third lumbar. In 6 months, he grew 5 inches. His kidneys tripled in size. His bowels came back. He didn't have to wear a diaper anymore. He's 18 years old right now. I just got a picture of him. They've moved. He's 5'10". Everything is fine. This kid would have probably not lived if he hadn't gotten an adjustment. Now, is that a miracle? You could say it's a miracle. But what about the 4-year-old that was coming in that I adjusted that didn't have any of those symptoms? They didn't have any of these things, but never will experience those things.
Also a miracle.
Will never know what it means not to control his bowels or have kidney problems or stunted growth. He will grow up healthy, which is the greater miracle. Yeah. I do not attach an outcome to my adjustments. I only attach my intention to the adjustment, and the outcomes take care of themselves. And that's what I told this young man, and he started crying on the phone. That's what I've been missing, and that's what I want you all to understand.
Yeah, I mean, that brings like tears to my eyes and goosebumps to my skin, just because being a young chiropractor and a young entrepreneur and just a young human being, right? And about to be a young father, like a lot of how I measure my success is against my outcomes, against what my accolades, right? Like, what have I accomplished up to this point? Why do I deserve to be standing here today with you, speaking on this topic? Why do I deserve to be standing in front of people speaking about the miracles of chiropractic, or what we can deliver to them and their family? Like, why do I deserve to be a vessel and a conduit? And I think what you just provided me was reassurance that I'm right where I need to be, and I have all that I need in order to keep stay persevering, and stay on the path. And I will over time accumulate the same stories and the evidence of success that you have in the past 28 years.
So I'm gonna change your thought process right now.
Yep.
Instead of asking the question, why do I deserve? Ask the question, who do I serve?
Mm.
That'll change everything.
Yep. Yep. That's great. Thank you. So what is intention, Dr. Tim?
Intention is the purpose for being. Your intention is your purpose for being in that moment. So the intention when you're with your wife, the intention when you're with your children, the intention that when you're with a patient, with your friends, your intention is you were so focused on the moment that you care so much about what's happening right now that nothing else matters. You don't care about what's going to happen. You don't care about what has happened. You don't care about outcomes. You only care about the moment. That intention comes from you. One of the things I teach everybody is your life, your income, your practice, your relationships, everything that you see comes from you, not to you. And when you own that in every aspect of your life, when you own that everything that happens comes from you, then you're going to start understanding what true intention is. You get a perfect example. My intention, when my feet hit the floor, the first thought that goes in my brain, the way I do anything is the way I do everything. The way I do anything is the way I do everything. That's when my feet hit the floor, that's what hits me. Next, every thought, word, and action I do today will be an attempt to honor my wife. God gave her to me. He said, protect her and take care of her. That's what I'll do. 29 years later, we're on our first date every day because my intention is to honor her with every thought, word, and action. When I am with a patient, my intention is connect the soul to the tissue cell, not to make a noise, not to make money, not to see how quick I can get them in and out. I catch a lot of grief because I can, I'll adjust some mornings, 100, 115 patients in 3 hours. And I catch a lot of grief that there's no way you can give great care in that amount of time. The difference is every minute I spend with them, they feel like it's 5 minutes because of my intention, right? That is an inside job, and you can't understand it unless you have the intention to become that, right? So intention is what you in your heart understand and believe who you are. That's your intention.
Mm. And I actually listened to your episode the other day that you got on, and you were talking about listening with your heart and not with your brain. And one thing that resonated with me from that is hearing and learning from Dr. Joe Dispenza and the Heart Math Institute, and learning about heart brain coherence and the electromagnetic field of the heart 100 times greater than that of the brain. I think that just kind of put into perspective, even if we weren't talking about it scientifically, if we were talking about it more from a spiritual perspective, there's no separation there, like the way that you talk about listening with your heart, being present with your heart and not with your brain. And that can set the tone and kind of set the path of success for you and the person you sit across from. Can you expand on that?
I'm going to give you an example of that I love. That it's not even chiropractic, not really, but it is. We have a massage therapist that we've been working with for years. I refer everybody to her. My wife goes to her every 2 weeks. She's done it to me and she's done it to my wife both, so I know she does it all the time. So my wife was she normally has a shoulder problem. She goes and Bronte always works on the shoulder, always goes to that area. We've been going for 14 years, so she just knows. Well, she started playing pickleball or something, and my wife's feet were really, really, really hurting. And so, but she didn't say a word. She didn't say anything to her. She just laid on the table. Bronte comes in, immediately goes to her feet and starts working on her feet. I did something several weeks later. I hurt my shoulder. She normally works on my lower back because from all the lifting and everything I've done. She immediately went to my shoulder. Bronte, how did you know? She just smiled and said, he told me. He told me. Goosebumps, right? And that's all she said. She doesn't question that. When you're with a patient, when you're with anyone, it doesn't matter who you're with. When you're with a patient, though, when I walk into the room, if I have a clipboard, I walk in with my clipboard, and I sit down in front of my patient, and I lay the clipboard down, and I lean in, and I say, "Tell me what's going on," and I'm listening with my heart, not my ears. And what's going to happen is, if you will listen with your heart and not your ears, they are going to tell you things through their energy, through perception, that their words are not going to articulate. You're going to feel what's going on more than you're going to hear what's going on. But here is the flip side of that. They are going to feel that you are present, not from your words, but from your presence. So one of the things I want everyone to understand, you are not present with anybody in your world. Patient, spouse, friend, family, it doesn't matter. You're not present unless they feel you are present. And you were kind of talking about that. These people Joe Dispenza and John Minardi, and there's some Heidi Havoc. There's some very smart people in this profession, and they will break it down to the chemical and the action and the neuron and everything. What's going on with all these things, which is great. We need that. But in my world, it's called innate. It's called innate. It's the innate connection. You got to understand something, gang. This is really powerful, and it's hard for you all to reprimand. I'm gonna take what you just asked me, and I'm gonna bring it into chiropractic philosophy.
Yep.
We all agree that there is a source, universal intelligence, and if you are expecting to be a successful chiropractor and you do not own your philosophy, you are in a river with 100 pounds weight on your back swimming upstream. That's how much chiropractic is going to struggle for you. But if you understand your philosophy and you understand this principle, there is a universal intelligence that is dictating everything that's going on, that is expressed through all living tissue as innate intelligence. So we all come from one source. Everything comes from one source. So when your patient is laying in front of you and you lay hands on, you both come from the same source. And if you'll quit talking and quit thinking and start being, your innate and that patient's innate, which is exactly the same. It's the same. They will connect. And you will know things. You will understand where to adjust. You will understand how to adjust. You will understand what's going on at an innate level that you can't explain. No one wants to talk about that. Schools hate that. Educators hate that. Chiropractors hate that because you can't prove it. You can't read it in a book and understand it. You have to experience it. And that's what I'm talking about. When chiropractic is revealed to you, that's when you close your educated brain and let the innate brain take over. And then you'll understand and know things about why you do what you do on a level that you can't explain. No one wants to talk about it. It's uncomfortable. Now you're just like, well, that's a hokey. Okay. Well, then why is it that I see, sometimes, 200 people a day, and they pour through my door and they say, "Doc, I was just on my way home and I looked up and I'm in your parking lot." Right? Is that an accident? Is that a coincidence? I go and I adjust somebody. "Doc, how did you know that was where I needed to be adjusted?" I just simply say, it's my job to know. So there's a whole different level of chiropractic that is never talked about, that no one wants to bring up. They all want to be, more mechanistic. They want to be able to prove it. They want to have evidence base. Well, I'll tell you where the evidence is. Come, everyone listening to this is welcome to come to my office and observe any Monday morning they want to. Watch the people coming through that door. There's your evidence. I hope
Yeah.
that answered the question. I go
It
on
did answer
tangents
the question.
sometimes.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, most of the time whenever I'm in this like hosting kind of role, I'm trying to stay on track, but right now I'm just finding myself captivated. So I'm as much of a listener as everybody else that's listening. And I'll tell you one thing, now seeing my wife become a human vessel and growing another human being inside of her, I think that is more evidence to me than I've ever felt in my entire life. And I'm not sure where the Western world is headed. It seems like we have these forces that are stronger than they've ever been that are working against us. And it does seem like we are in a disadvantageous position as chiropractors, especially if we don't band together. However, everything that you just explained is everything that I've felt since the onset of this stuff in 2020. And I'm more rooted in my philosophy and my understanding of innate intelligence and my willingness to stand on the podium and spread it to the general public than I've ever been. First, because of those years of having misinformation choke down the throat of most of our nation. And then now to see my wife kind of go through this developmental journey with our young son now being developed from 2 cells into 17 trillion with no need for intervention, with no need for anything exogenous. It's just the doctor within her, the intelligence within her. And I think now I'm starting to feel I've always looked up to different icons, different legends, right? Arno Bernier, DeMartini, yourself, Hugo Gibson, Sigafus, Reggie Gold, and I'm like, how can they stand in so much certainty and speak with so much certainty without questioning their philosophy if there is no evidence compiled to support it, right? There is no RCTs. That's what we've been taught. We're the new age doctors of chiropractic.
Yeah.
But now all of these things that I'm experiencing in my life are slowly kind of building myself and my certainty up to be able to do the things that you guys do and root into cement, right? Ground so firmly that like you stand your ground no matter what you're met with.
Now, I'm going to tell you something. Wait till you're present of the birth of your child.
Mm-hmm.
The human being you are today will change forever. I promise you. When I saw the birth of my child, he became the air in my lungs. It was life changing. I'm going to share something with you. And you're right. And you sometimes you get a little disheartened, and you look at the world, and you look at what's going on, and within our chiropractic world, our chiropractic universe, I look at the profession, and I get to travel worldwide, and I have a very strong, deep relationship with this profession. It is in my heart, so I want to protect it. But I'm going to tell you, when I think that we're in trouble, I'll travel to somewhere like Chichester, New England, a little small town, country town, and all the way, like 2 or 3 hours from London, down in the middle of nowhere. And there's a chiropractor that comes up to me that went to McTimony Chiropractic School, one of the schools that have removed all philosophy. What they do is you manipulate the mid back 6 times at the most. If the patient doesn't feel better, you immediately refer them to their medical doctor. That's what they're being taught. That's what all the schools are taught. What they're doing is they're turning the chiropractic profession into a primary portal of entry for medicine. People go to a medical doctor, they fail, they look for an alternative, they go to the chiropractor. We want the chiropractor to send them right back. That's what's going on. But this young man comes up to me and he said, "Doc, that's what they teach us." He said, "But I have to talk to you." I said, "Okay." He said, I feel there's something more. There's something else going on. I know it. I feel it." At that moment, I had such a unbelievable feeling of hope, And here's what's really going on. The truth, the absolute truth, will always reveal itself. It will always win. Light will always conquer dark. Good will always conquer evil. Always. We will have a pendulum swing, but it will always be there. It will always be there. You can't not believe that. And when this young man said, "I know there's more," he was never exposed to it. The schools didn't teach it. He never read a green book. He never heard of BJ. He never heard of me. He just went to school because chiropractic sounds like, I can be a PT. I can be chiropractic sounds pretty cool. I don't really believe in medicine. That's all the reason he went. And all of a sudden he's in there and he's adjusting 10 or 15 people a day. And he's starting to say, wait a minute, there's something going on here. There's more going on. How do you explain the patient that had asthma and I'm manipulating a mid-thoracic 4 or 5 times and they're coming in going, doc, I'm breathing better. Wait, what? The patient that had a migraine, my migraine is gone. Wait, what? So the truth will be revealed if we will accept it. It'll change the direction of our future. But that's what we've got to hang our hat on. What you're saying is when you witness the birth of your child, that's truth. What you just said, 2 cells into that, the same intelligence that created that is the same intelligence that heals a cut, that mends a broken bone, that when you move an atlas, now the brain communicates that intelligence right into the tissue cell, and whatever that an innate decides it wants to heal, it's going to. Same thing. We got to own that. So I'll share this quickly with you. I used to do the same thing you're doing. Gosh, I remember I would sit in my truck in the back of my office, and I would ask myself, what was the difference of Sigafus, Gold, BJ, Gonstead, DeMartini? What made them different than the rest of us? Why were they able to do all these? The Bain brothers, 3 Bain brothers saw 10,000 patient visits a week. What made them different? What was it? And I was at a lyceum down in Sherman College several years ago, many years ago, and Freddie Schofield was there. And I don't know if you know who Fred Schofield is, but this guy's been around forever. Freddie's crazy. I mean, you got to know.
He's South African as well, right? South African.
Yes, he is. Very South African.
Yep. The rhino.
I heard someone speak that Fred Schofield single-handedly come to America, went to Palmer College and led this rugby team to a national championship himself. That's how crazy this guy is. But we were all standing in a crowd, and it was Freddie and me and a bunch of students and a bunch of young chiropractors, and we're all just in a circle after the seminar. We're just talking, and I asked the question, Fred, what's the difference from those guys? Sigafus, Gold, all these legends. What separates them from the rest of us? And all the doctors there, all the young doctors, the students and the young doctors, they all had the cliche answers. It was their certainty. It was their confidence. It was it was all these things. And Fred, if those that you are listening that don't know Freddie, I can't articulate him, but just imagine a crazy chiropractor that had a couple cocktails. Freddie turned around and he snapped. He grabbed a young chiropractor and he slammed the back of his hand into his chest and he screamed, "No!" And he looked at everybody. He said, "No." And everybody froze, even me. I'm like, oh, shit, I made Fred mad. And he turned and looked at me and he said all of those doctors knew the kingdom of innate. That's the answer that I've been looking for all these years. When you understand, when you know, when you stand and revel and live your life, everything we have comes from the kingdom of innate, everything changes. Everything changes. Everything you see, the way you see everything changes. And that's the key to a successful chiropractic practice.
Mm. And so is believing that and understanding that and kind of getting it from the natural world around us and different experiences that we have in life, does that translate into who you are as a chiropractic practitioner, as an early chiropractor? Or are these things, again, that you need to accumulate experiences over time to be able to stand in that certainty?
It's an accumulation. So you got to be paying attention, right? You got to be paying attention to those things. You got to read your green books. You got to go to the seminars. You got to listen to the chiropractors that have been there and done it. You got to listen to them, and you got to hear their message, and you got to understand that they were like, I was just like all of you. I started out knowing nothing, right? Knowing nothing, having nothing, and created all of this through this understanding. but it's an accumulation. It's every day. It's day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year of accumulating and becoming more certain. It's just like getting in shape, right? If you decide that, okay, you're either 200 pounds overweight, or you're skinny and have no muscle, or whatever it is, and you decide you want to become physically fit, what do you got to do? Well, you better go to the gym, and you better work out, and you better eat right, once a week, once a month, once a year, every day.
Yeah.
Every day. And it's this certainty. And here's the thing, it's not a belief. Dr. Gibson said this to me several years ago. He said, Tim, I don't believe chiropractic, I know chiropractic. There's a difference. There's a difference. There's a difference of saying, I believe if I adjust you that the body will respond and you'll heal. There's a difference of that to, I know, without a doubt, if I make an adjustment, your body will improve. There's a difference. That comes with an accumulation of time. But Here's the thing. I want you all to think about this. Your certainty is your spiritual conditioning, your understanding conditioning. And you don't get in shape by working out once a year, or every now and then you go to a seminar, or every great once in a while you pick up a book. It doesn't work that way. And it needs to be your lifelong mission to become a better student and a servant to who put you here in the first place.
Yep. That's great imagery for me. So like believing turns to knowing through that bridge of experience.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. So kind of transitioning now into the chiropractic kind of professional world. So talking about practice, right, which is what you do in your Focus Foundations coaching group, right? And how many people are you coaching now, Dr. Tim?
Oh gosh, we're over 445 different countries right now.
Okay, so and that just shows right there that the principles are universal, which is awesome.
Absolutely.
You can't say anything more than that. So can you talk to us about what does success look like as a chiropractic practice, not just a chiropractor, but a chiropractic practice? And how can you build that success? Firstly, as a young chiropractor, so a first-year chiropractor. Actually, let me pause right there. What would you recommend the path look like for a first-year chiropractor? Are you going to recommend moving into an associateship that is mentorship led by someone who has the amount of certainty and knowing through the experience that we've been talking about? Or are you saying, if you have the belief and you have the skill to be able to move a bone the way that we both agree is the standard of chiropractic excellence, do you believe that they should go out and venture into their own practice right out of school?
Well, and what's interesting about that is within my coaching program, I have a whole series called Blueprints that I've got for students and young doctors that join with us, A to Z, like everything you need to know about opening your practice. And within that Blueprint program, I go into that. Do you become an associate, or do you open your own practice? And there's so many different factors that go into that. You may be coming out of school with zero money, zero opportunity. You have no idea what you're doing. Well, then it's a good idea to try to find somebody and that's the hard part, is find somebody, what you're talking about, with that certainty, that understanding, that can afford to pay you. Because a lot of times what happens is doctors just looking for associates to do the work they don't want to do, and then they don't pay them anything, right? That's what's unfortunate. But if you can find somebody, I have 3 associates right now, and I'm teaching them and they're learning, and and everything's working great. But that's kind of hard to find. If you have worked hard and you understand and you have financial opportunity to open your own practice, then yes, go do that. So it's not a cut and dry answer. But I'm going to tell you what success looks like is keeping it very, very simple. Keep your overhead low, keep your practice small, and just stick to what works. The adjustment. There's such a big push on nutrition and functional neurology and specializing and all these things. No. Adjust the bone. That's why they come. They can go anywhere else for all those other things. They can go to Gold's Gym, and their personal trainer can do a lot of those things. The only thing that they cannot get anywhere else is the chiropractic specific adjustment. So focus on that. So as you go into an associateship, that's going to teach you. I was an associate for the first 3 years, train wreck, but I learned a lot. My daughter Alasha, she was an associate for a doctor a year in Texas, and she went to Kansas for a year. 2 great female chiropractors, very successful. She learned a lot. She come back to Oklahoma City, opened her own practice, and boom, straight to the top. because she learned that certainty. So I think that's a really good avenue, but you've got to be very careful on who you're learning from. You don't want to learn someone else's mistakes, and you don't want to become somebody else's punching bag just because they built a practice they hate, and they're going to teach you how to hate it too. So you got to be careful with that. But there's nothing saying that you can't open your own practice and be very successful. I see it all the time. Right? I've got doctors in my group. I got one little. She went. She's a little bitty town between Kansas City and St. Louis. She opened her own practice. She called me and she joined the group. And she said, "Can I do this?" And I said, "Yeah, you can do this." Her first week, she collected enough money her first week to pay for all of her overhead for the entire month. Right? So it can be done, but it's the level of training. And that's why, and I'm not here to promote my program. I'm not, but you brought it up. That's why I created Foundations, is because I've got students that join the group. They learn how to do a proper consultation exam, report of findings. Gang, I'm going to blow your mind. And a consultation should only take 2 minutes. An exam should only take 2 minutes. Your report of findings should only take 4 or 5 minutes. An adjustment should only take 1 minute to 2 minutes. There's no need for any of that. Now, you're in school right now, and you're going, they're making us do 3-day exams, 3-day consultations. I know. That's not reality. That's not real world. That will not serve you. You take that into practice, you're not able to see more than 5 or 10 people a day. Well, how are you going to be successful with that? Unless you're charging $1,000 a visit, you're in trouble, right? So those are the things that need to be taught along the way. So long answer, yes, you can either be an associate or you can open your own practice if you go out with the right tools. You didn't get the tools in school. You better go find them out in the profession.
That's great. So not to be like an antagonist, but just playing devil's advocate here, how do you start and open a practice and build a practice to that level of success with kind of the referral-based strategy that you have, right? Like you just serve people, and the quality of service speaks for itself. And that's what kind of continues to fill your pipeline and your practice. How do you do that as a young practice with no reputation in whatever geographical location you decide to practice?
Well, yeah, good question. So I'm having to learn a lot. The way I did it was I went out and met everybody. I shook every hand. I went into every business. I made sure that everyone knew me, and I hear it all the time. Well, I'm just really not comfortable with that. Tough. Get over it. I mean, you got to go get them. They're not just going to come pouring through your door. Now we have today we have social media, and I'm not really good at it, and I don't really understand it to the level my daughter does. But she created a social media presence. There's people all over the world that follow my daughter. That they'll come up to me and say, "I follow your daughter." I don't even know what that means. I mean, but they follow her on Instagram, and she's got a following that's crazy, and so she's learned to do that. So basically, it doesn't matter if it's Google, Instagram, Facebook, shaking hands. Here's how you build a practice. Here's how you get them through the door. You got to let them know who you are. You got to do talks. You got to do booths. You got to do events. And it's not, again, if you want to get in shape, you want to build a big body, well, then you better go to the gym every day. If you want to build a big practice, before the office, at lunch, at night, 7 days a week, you're out there shaking hands, introducing yourself to people, doing events. You do that. Then when they walk through the door, I'm gonna make it very, very simple. Everybody's listening to this from this point on. Write this down. This is your guide. This is the $1 million advice that I give to most successful doctors in the world. Your patients, people in general, do not want to be educated. They do not want to be educated. If they did, they'd have went to school. No different than if you take your car to a mechanic because your car's not running right. You don't want the education on how the engine works. You don't want an hour dissertation on the combustible engine. You don't. You want to know this. What's the problem? Can you help me? How long will it take? And what will it cost? Answer those 4 things with certainty, and you will build a large practice for the rest of your career. Anything other than that, you will lose them. Write that down. Your patients want to know, what is my problem? Can you help me? How long is this going to take? And what is this going to cost? And if you can answer those things with certainty and confidence, you will never have a problem in practice. If you can't, you better figure out how before you start. That's the best advice I can give you.
Yep. Oh, that's great advice. I say the same thing. Whenever I'm talking to students, 3 questions they want to know is, can you help me first and foremost? How much is it going to cost, and how long is it going to take? I love that. You just get
they want to know what my problem is. Because see, here's the thing. What you got to understand is the whole world's brainwashed. By the time we're 18 years old, we see 180,000 hours of drug commercials. All of us. Though that's chiropractors are brainwashed. I promise you. Here's the thing. Every one of you listening to me right now, you're brainwashed. You don't even know it. And I can prove it. Have you ever asked anybody, how are you feeling?
Oh,
You're
yeah.
brainwashed. You're brainwashed. I never ask a patient how they're feeling. Let me see how you're doing. Let's face down. Let's get you moving. Not, Mrs. Jones, how do you feel today? Right? That's pharmaceutical brainwashing, because we want to talk about how we feel. And if I take this, I don't feel it. That's not health. That is not health. So our patients are brainwashed. So we got to twist. We got to unbrainwash them. I had a patient come in Wednesday. Doc, I know I ain't seen you in a while, but I need to get things moving. He said to me, I need you to get things moving. Why did he use those words? Because I taught them to him. I don't crack your back. I don't get rid of pain. I get things moving. Motion is life. That's what we got to remember.
Oof. Good stuff there. What are the 3 most important characteristics of a high-performing chiropractor? And not just chiropractically, but also just as a human being and a business owner.
3 most important aspects of a chiropractor are, first of all, know who you are. The person you are. You have to look in the mirror. You got to love what you do. You got to love who you are. You got to respect who you are. You got to trust you. You got to honor you first. That person you look at, if you do not love, respect, trust, believe in, if you don't, that person, you can't expect anyone else to either. That has to come first. The relationship you have here is first. The relationship you have with your spouse, your kids, your family, everyone else is second. You have to have that before you walk into the office. If you don't, you can never be a truly successful chiropractor, because the person that delivers the adjustment, that person is is the intention. That's how that person is going to get well. That's the first thing. Second, you got to know exactly what it is you do. You're not cracking bones. You're not. I call the majority of chiropractors today, the practices are what I call the pop and pray and hope they pay. That's what they're running. They don't know what they do. First of all, they don't know who they are. They don't even like who they are, so they don't question it. They don't want to talk about it. They don't know what they do. They don't know what they do. They're not quite sure, and so you got to own that. And then at the end of it, the most important thing of a successful, high volume, the doctors that I know the most successful doctors in the world. I've spent time with them. They know why they do what they do. They understand why. They have a bigger purpose in life. It is not to build a new home. It is to serve. It is to decrease the amount of net suffering in the world. And you do that through the chiropractic adjustment. So the 3 most important things about being a successful chiropractor: who you are, know what you do, and damn it, you better know why you're doing it. And when you can put those things in congruence, there is no limitations of what you can accomplish. None. That's the most important things.
And you get what you give. You get what you give.
That's just it.
That's
just it.
Tell us about so I followed you for a while, and obviously, like, first off, I want to say that none of the things that you've said today have moved me. It's how you feel that's moving me. It's the emotion. It's the energy that you're transferring here. So that's really cool for me to experience, even on the other side of a computer screen, right? Like that's something that's so powerful about the energy that you harness and the energy that you're able to transmit. And I think that comes through with the certainty and the experience. However, I also have been following you for a long time. And one thing that I noticed that you have that a lot of other people that are aspiring successful chiropractors don't is discipline and determination. You know, you're up every morning. I see you post typically, you know, before I'm even awake, you know, just got done with the gym and here's a lesson that came to me during my set today. You know, you've already worked out by what looks to be like 5 a.m., 5:30, 6 a.m., something like that. You're going into the office, you're serving chiropractors through a message that came to you due to that discipline before most people are even awake. You're serving 200 people in the office, and then you're leaving the practice. And it looks to me from afar that you're an incredibly supportive father for your children and an incredibly supportive husband that's devoted to your wife. So tell me about your discipline and your routine and what you really dedicate your life to outside of the office.
Well, it's those 3 things that I just told you about. You know, it's knowing who you are, what you do, and why you do it, right? And so who you are, I work on every day. Every day, I'm up most mornings. I'm up at 3:30, and I'm at the gym by 4. I'm back at the house by 5. I'm sitting here right here. You know, you can see my The picture behind me, I look at it every day. That's the first adjustment. That painting was commissioned by a famous artist that did that for me. That brick that you see right there, that
Yep.
brick is from the building that the first adjustment was delivered. I mean, I surround myself with what I do. So I work on who I am. I surround myself with why I do it, or what I do, and then why I do it. She's out here right now, right? And so the discipline comes from what I said when my feet hit the ground. The first discipline they have is the way I do anything is the way I do everything, right? That is the message I deliver to myself. I'm not going to let myself down. In January I'll be 57 years old. It's just kind of weird to say that out loud. I've got 3 kids, and all 3 of them are unbelievably successful in their own professions. They're doing crazy things. I got 3 grandkids now, and that I just worship, that I cannot wait to spend time with. I'm creating a generational change. I'm creating a life. At 57, listen, brother, you ain't seen nothing yet. I've just scratched the surface. You talk about Ed Milet. In my brain, I will be standing on the same stage as Ed Milet, delivering a message. All right. I know this is where I'm headed. Right. And so, again, here's the thing. You said something powerful. The energy that you're feeling from me, that's because it's genuine. That's who I am. That's what's on the inside. Right. The discipline comes from understanding those things. And when you have a sense of purpose bigger than you, discipline is easy. Discipline, it's non-negotiable. It is non-negotiable. This is the way it's going to be. And if we all can work on that, but it starts with, the very first, in my coaching group, the very first video that I show is me sitting in the woods where I grew up as a little boy, and it's called Personal Philosophy. And it's the first thing I tell every doctor that coaches with me. You better understand that you are the captain of your ship. You are the captain of your ship, and the winds are going to blow, storms are going to come, but you're the one with the hands on the wheel. If you take your hands off the wheel, well, guess where your life is going to go? You better keep your hands on the wheel, and you better respect, love, honor, trust. You better be the person that you know. I look at myself this way. I believe in you. Because if I don't, neither will she, neither will they, no one will, right? It's that important. That's where my discipline comes from, is my deep sense of purpose.
Yeah, mic drop. One thing that I noticed, and this came early on in our conversations about this podcast, and it's something that struck me deeply and had me kind of reassessing how I move through the world, is you sent me a text. I think maybe 3 days had lapsed, and you were going to get back to me about a time for the podcast episode. And what you sent to me was, "Hey, Travis, I'm sorry. I dropped the ball and I didn't get back to you. Let's kind of rekindle this conversation." And what I extrapolated from that was, firstly, like, you didn't really know me from Adam. You didn't know that I was sitting in the stands that day watching you adjust Hugo Gibson, and then standing on stage and moving me and inspiring me as a young chiropractic student. You see so many people in your practice every day. You coach over 400 chiropractors. You have a life and you have a family, and you came to me and apologized and took extreme ownership for not getting back to me the way that you said that you would. And that, to me, was just super powerful, because I think extreme ownership is something that we lack as Americans and as chiropractors. And the fact that you sent that message to a Peabody, like, seemingly, right? Like, it was something that I took, and I kind of locked that in, and it changed the way that I moved through that day. And I think it's going to change the way that I move through my practice. But taking extreme ownership, and not just the moments that are externally publicized, right? Not just like the big moments where you stand on stage and you say, "I take ownership," but in those small moments where, like, nobody's watching, and you don't have to. You didn't have to. You didn't have to apologize. You didn't have to own that. You didn't have to say any of those words, but you did. And I think that speaks more about who you are than it does anything else.
Well, I'm going to tell you 2 things. One, the way you see you and the way I see you is 2 different things. You use a couple of words that I understand, and I get it, and I say this respectfully. How you view you in comparison to me, like you're just nobody compared to Tim Young. I don't see it that way. You are every bit as important as anybody else in my life. I don't care that I hadn't met you. I don't care. It's irrelevant. You are just as important as the patient laying in front of me. This moment that you and I are spending together right now is the most important moment that I've ever spent in my life right now. And that's how I address everyone. I mean, I get told all the time that, I will respond to anyone and everyone. I say, let me know. I don't care who you are. I'll come and help. That's what I mean. And so, Travis, you're one of the most important people in the profession, right? And you have, and when you start understanding that, when you look at you the way I look at you, then you're going to start seeing the success and results in your life that you haven't even experienced yet. But what's funny is I emulate that wherever I go. I had on our Facebook group, in our coaching group, I had one of our doctors was out for a run, and she took a picture of some trash on the side of the road, and she posted it. She said, "I ran past this and I stopped, and I heard Tim Young's voice in the back of my head, pick up the damn trash." Right. And I teach it. So because I've done that, if I'll walk into a bathroom, and if there's paper everywhere, I'll clean the bathroom. If I'm going across a parking lot and somebody, threw some trash in the parking lot, I'll pick it up and throw it away. Why is it someone else's responsibility? Why is it someone else's responsibility to get back with you? It's my responsibility. And so, like you say, when you take personal responsibility, it's for everything, not just what people are looking at, not just what makes you look good. I'm responsible for every thought, word, and action that I have, and that ownership is very powerful, very important, Travis. And you nailed it. And you do the same thing. But the importance of the way you talk to yourself, the way you look at yourself, how you view who you are, that's just as important as everything else.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't view myself as a Peabody or a nobody. It's just generally in people's perception, like you stay confined to your immediate circle. And so typically, like, it's hard to give the same level of attention and respect to people outside of that, even if they are deserving, so not that I look at myself that way. I don't, I believe in who I am, and I love who I am.
Good.
But I'm just,
if you didn't, I was going to make sure you did.
Yeah, for sure. No, I have, it's funny. You were talking about the things behind you. I have a wolf there that I think is my spirit animal. And I have that belt right there, which is the BMF belt. Do you watch UFC? Are you a mixed martial arts fan? You must be.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, must be.
My son is one step away from getting into UFC. He's got to fight December 3rd. We live, breathe, and eat it and sleep it.
That's right. So, he's the main event. He's the main event for that event, right?
Yeah. Tomorrow night, Vince Pitchell is the very first fight on the main card. If you watch that tomorrow night, Vince, that's who my son has been sparring with for the last 3 weeks, getting ready for that fight.
No way. Yeah. And where's your son training out of? He was in Colorado, right?
He's out in Colorado. He's at Factory X. So he's out there with last week you saw Jonathan and the other two, their leg kick. They both of them won the leg kicks. That's who Aryon's training with the top young up and comers in the UFC. That's who he trains with every week. So as a matter of fact, he's right now he's in the middle of sparring with all of those killers right now on a Friday. So
that's awesome, man. So that was the Justin Gaethje fight, the BMF fight against Dustin Poirier that was in Utah. And I went to that fight, and I had learned from Justin Gaethje at a striking seminar through Dwayne Ludwig, who was a Boss Rutan protege. And just a month before that. And then I went to that fight and just loved the experience so much, and just what it really meant to be the BMF, and to show up, dedicate yourself to the work, and like just competing constantly. And I actually bought that belt. I spent too much money on it, but come to find out, that was actually the day that Sarah and I conceived as well. Now that belt means way, way more to me. Yeah.
That's awesome. Man, revel in those moments, man. That's you surround yourself with it. That's what you got to do. It's your environment.
Exactly. Yep. Which I love. Well, thank you for being here, Dr. Tim. I do have 2 questions posted on Instagram yesterday, and I asked for any young chiropractors to give me some questions that they want to have asked to Dr. Tim Young. I had more, but I wasn't able to read them and jot them down before we hopped on the episode today, because I posted it late last night and they were bringing them in early. But this question comes from Megan Schweitzer, who is she's actually doing her preceptor now. She's at Palmer in Florida. She asked, what are the 3 most important things a young doc needs to know that's opening up right out of school?
Well, okay. So first of all, if you're going to open right up out of school, first of all, open where you want to wake up every day. Go to an area. Do not limit yourself. Every day that you wake up and you look around, you want to be happy that you're there, right? So that's the most important thing. Second thing is, keep everything very, very cheap, very, very, or as I say cheap, inexpensive. Do not borrow a ton of money and get a big, huge office, 800 square foot, and try to keep your overhead very, very low, because in the beginning, it's going to be very, very tough. And the third thing is, no matter where you are and where your practice is, you see to it that everybody knows you before you open. I have a thing called 1,000 business card rule. You get 1,000 business cards and you hand out one at a time 1,000 business cards. And when you get done with that 1,000, you get 1,000 more. And you keep doing it until you get your practice to 100 visits a week. Those are the three most, and listen, gang, to her, Megan, listen, get ready. School, you think school's hard? You ain't seen anything yet. Wait till you get out and practice, and everything you do pays your bills. And so it's time to go to work. So the work you put into school, 10x that. 10x that. Once you do that, and then you get to 100 a week, and then it kind of takes on a life of its own. But that's the three most important things I'm going to tell a young doctor coming out. You got to do those three things.
That's great. We're teaching a small little seminar in Berkeley, California next weekend, where I just go back and teach young chiropractors kind of these principles that I learned when opening our practice. And that's the one thing I say is I think students have kind of a misperception that they did the hard work, Yeah. But what they maybe don't understand just yet is that the work doesn't start until you cross that stage.
No, and it never quits. And it never quits.
Yep, that's right. Next question by Chris Khalifa asked, how do you provide such high quality care while seeing so many patient visits per day? I can imagine where this answer is going to go, but I think you've already answered it throughout the episode. But if you want to leave us with an answer, that'd be great.
All right. So what you have to understand is that people didn't come for conversation. People didn't come for a back rub. People did not come to you for your time. They come to you for results. And when you bring your technique and your skill level to understand that a specific chiropractic adjustment is where the results come from, that if I can adjust Atlas on the left, I can adjust T4 on the right, I can adjust a fifth lumbar or a sacrum, and I can do that specifically with intention, being present. It only takes me a minute to a minute and a half to do that. If they're talking, then I help them up. They come to me for results and not for the time that I spent. Remember, I tell everybody this. It's not how many you see, it's how do you see the many. And you take 1 minute, you make it feel like 5 by your presence and by your intention. That's the quality. The people that come into my office, they don't come to me to spend time. They got their own lives. The people that come to you, they don't come to you to spend time with you. If they wanted to spend time with you, they'd take you to dinner. And I'm going to ask everybody this. How long does it take you to adjust your best friend? How long does it take you to adjust your wife or your husband? Mm-hmm. How long does it take? Right? So if it only takes you a minute to adjust them or 2 minutes to adjust them, why are you spending so much time with everybody else? You care about them more? Ask yourself that question. So that's how, because I am very specific, I'm very intentional, and I'm very present. Every time. That's how I do it.
Damn. That may be the best way that I've ever heard that put. Do you care about them more? And obviously the answer to that question is no. But maybe seemingly as a young practitioner, like you're latching on to like the monetary value of the person, and you want to make sure that you don't disgruntle them by not showcasing your expertise.
Here's what everybody wants to do. Everybody wants their patients to like them. They want them to like them, so they spend time and talk to them. Quit trying to get them to like them. Shut the hell up, adjust them and help them up, and tell them when to come back and get them to respect and love you. You can either have them like you or love and respect you. You make the decision.
That's great. All right, Dr. Tim. Well, we're coming up on an hour and 20 minutes here. I think that we've covered most that I wanted to cover. Do you have anything that you want to leave the listeners, young chiropractors, veteran chiropractors, anybody out there that's listening to this for their own personal or professional growth?
You know what? The last thing I'm going to say is I appreciate you guys' time. You can find me on Facebook Messenger. Just reach out to me. If you want anything from me, or let me know where you are. I know chiropractors in almost every state in this country. If you want to go visit a high volume doctor or a very principled doctor, if you want a seminar or if you want something to learn from, I will find you somebody. Just reach out. I'm here. When I say that reach out, I'm here. I will. If I can't help you, I will find somebody that will. That's, I have two philosophies in a lot of this. A rising tide floats all boats, and a candle never suffered by lighting another candle. We've got to stick together. That's why I love these podcasts. That's why I love doing this stuff. I mean, I do lots of these. That's why I travel to Chicago and Dallas, and good Lord, I've got 5 different countries I'm going to next year, because a candle never suffered from lighting another candle. Let's just reach out.
Man, well, thank you so much for being here, Dr. Tim. Immense gratitude. Just so thankful for you being willing to spend your time here with me today and share this message. Appreciate you and all things you do. Thanks for being here.
I'm honored. I appreciate you guys.